Donald Trump's many problems with the law have created a whole cascade of legal spectacles that we have lived through. Our next guest actually brings quite unique and direct legal experience from really decades of litigation. He was special counsel investigating then President Clinton, also represented Donald Trump in the first impeachment trial.
Kenneth Starr can be now officially called the former independent counsel. His replacement, Robert Ray, was sworn in today to finish the 5-year-old continuing investigation of the Clintons.
The nation's interests have been served, and therefore I decline prosecution.
You're defending the president, calling it a witch hunt and the rats thing, are you?
I didn't start this conversation.
My viewers are too smart for the game you're playing.
There's no game here.
Tonight, we learned the makeup of Trump's defense team. It's back to the Clinton impeachment with former independent counsel Ken Starr and his successor, Robert Ray.
We have witnessed the endless procession of legal theories used to sustain this partisan impeachment.
Our special guest on the beat on this momentous hearing day is Robert Ray. Considerable experience. Thanks for coming back.
Nice to be with you, as always. A real pleasure.
Let's start with the quick stuff. Have you, in your service for Donald Trump, ever requested a pardon for anything in your life?
No.
Have you ever witnessed another Trump lawyer do so?
No.
Is it bad that John Eastman secretly did so?
I think that as a lawyer, you try to navigate along the lines of never doing anything that would get you disbarred, never have to take the Fifth Amendment, and I think probably the parallel in something like this is never do anything for which you would have to seek a pardon.
Mr. Eastman.
Maybe that's a pretty low bar, but it's something that you think about. I mean, you think about whenever you render advice, don't do anything that breaks the law, don't do anything that would cause you to lose your law license, don't do anything in which you'd have to take the Fifth Amendment, and in this context, don't do anything for which you would have to seek a pardon. You
put it plainly, and it's very interesting coming from you, sir. Mr. Giuliani has done one of those three things. His law practice license suspended. Mr. Eastman, at least two of those things. So when you see that he requests a pardon as a matter of evidence, does that, in your view, show that he was worried he committed crimes while trying to impact the election?
I think you have to be very careful about that, Ari. I mean, I think that's equivalent to sort of the notion that you don't infer from the fact that somebody takes the Fifth Amendment that they have guilty knowledge. And I don't know a circumstance under which the fact that he was trying to seek a pardon would be admissible in evidence. I mean, call me skeptical about that, but I have a hard time seeing if it were a criminal.
Do you want me to call you skeptical right now?
Sure.
I'll do it. You sound skeptical. Let me build the follow-up question, sir.
Go ahead.
This is, by the way, the evidence. He says, I should be on the pardon list if that's still in the works. That was secret. He didn't know that was going to come out.
Right.
You mentioned Fifth Amendment earlier in the show. We were very careful to note, in fairness to these individuals, that we don't legally infer based on the Fifth, because it's a constitutional right.
Right.
There's no right to get a pardon. As you know, the vast majority of people living in America watching this have no shot at that kind of thing. Right. He's using his access and his privilege to get a pardon. The committee is suggesting you can infer that he thought he was guilty there.
No, I hear that, but I think there are also reasons why people might seek pardons that don't necessarily go to the question of guilt or innocence. Just like, you know, in the Fifth Amendment context, somebody might assert their Fifth Amendment privilege, not with guilty knowledge, but for other reasons. So, you know, I think I just say be careful about that. I hear what the committee is saying, and I respect their view, which may be different from my own. And I'm not sure that my opinion is necessarily the right one. All I'm suggesting is be just careful about that. And I'm not sure whether, you know, unlike in the context of a congressional hearing where it's the audience is the American people, I'm not so sure that the fact that one sought a pardon would be admissible in evidence against a defendant at a trial in a criminal case.
Respectfully, you sound lawyerly.
Well, that's part of your show. I mean, I'm not saying that's the be-all and end-all, and I think Americans can make their own judgments about that, as they should, and that's why there's a proper place for a congressional hearing. I'm just saying it might be a little different in a criminal context if you're asking me about what that would look like in a criminal case.
Let me ask you differently, because this is an important conversation.
Sure.
Leaving the criminal context.
Right.
Based on what we learned today about Eastman, plus what's out there.
Right.
Was his lawyering a disservice to A, the United States, and or B, Donald Trump?
Look, Eric Hirschman, I think, had a witness also at these hearings, and a friend of mine and somebody that I worked closely with in connection with the defense of the former president in the first impeachment trial, I think had it about right. And I think, you know, his warning to Eastman to the effect, you better get yourself a criminal defense lawyer, is the kind of warning, if I got, that would be a significant brushback pitch and would have caused me more than just a little pause.
Chilling.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what I mean. That's my reaction to it.
Did Donald Trump lose the election?
Look, Joe Biden is the president of the United States.
That's not what I asked.
He lost the election.
I know who's president.
Right. He lost.
I'm just asking. No, let's
play it on the table.
You sounded very reasonable up to this point. The question is, did Donald Trump lose the election?
The answer is that Joe Biden was elected president of the United States. And
is that a yes? Donald Trump lost the election? When did this become so hard? I mean, you're a very serious person.
It's not hard. I have serious concerns about what happened during the course of that election that I think should be corrected for the next time.
That's great.
I'm not interested in rehashing the old thing.
Did Donald Trump lose the election?
We're done with that. Joe Biden had an electoral college majority and was elected president of the United States. Simple.
So Donald Trump lost because Joe Biden won.
Yeah, there's a winner and there's a loser.
Okay.
There's a winner and a loser.
Did Donald Trump
live to fight another day?
Did Donald Trump, according to this evidence, know he lost?
I think that he had a legitimate question in his mind about whether or not there was a fair election, which he's a view that he's entitled to have. I think he's entitled to seek legal advice about whether or not there's any recourse about that. But at the end of the day, he left office voluntarily, and Joe Biden was elected and was inaugurated president of the United States. That's the end. That's our system working.
Okay, let's look at the evidence, because this is also interesting. And you, of course, are one of the few people who's been a recent legal counsel in some capacity to Donald Trump, as mentioned in the impeachment. They did show a lot of evidence that other people in those kind of posts, right, aides, advisors, lawyers, repeatedly told him they're loyal to him, they like him, they wish he won, but they told him he lost. Take a look.
I essentially said, look, we looked at that allegation. That allegation was not supported by the evidence.
Eric and Pat didn't, told the group, the president included, that, none of those allegations had been substantiated.
I said, okay, well, with regard to Georgia, we looked at the tape, we interviewed the witnesses. There is no suitcase.
I told him that the stuff that his people were shoveling out to the public was bull.
From Bill Barr on down, we see these Trump lawyers, appointees, and staff say, you lost. This plan for the 6th is illegal. Are they all lying? Are they all wrong?
I don't know about the plan for the 6th being illegal, but, did he get advice from people that were close to him, who were lawyers, who were telling him that you didn't have the evidence to be able for us to do anything about it? Sure, he got that advice. He got advice from other people, whether you think it is well or ill-founded, that he might have recourse. And he's entitled to decide that he doesn't want to accept the advice of his lawyers, which clients do all the time. I'm well familiar with that little problem. So, I understand why the committee is doing what it is doing to try to set up the notion that essentially he's proceeding on a notion that he knows that his efforts to try to overturn the election are ill-founded and illegal. Look, I think one of the things that's come out of this thing that nobody really wants to pay too much attention to is that there are problems with the 12th Amendment and the Electoral College Act that need to be addressed. Donald Trump happened to make an effort to try to exploit them, and including through John Eastman. That only goes to serve, it seems to me, for the future that we need to tighten up at least the Electoral College Act.
And that's a policy discussion.
And I think that's going to happen, by the way, and I think it's going to happen on a bipartisan basis, and that's useful. And by the way, that was not something that was recognized as a problem exclusively post-January 6, 2020. That was something that people have recognized for some time. Well, and it needs correction. And it will be corrected.
And apparently it took a violent insurrection to get people focused on that. But final question here, just doubling back to it. Are those people right and telling the truth? Because that's considerable evidence marshaled now in public that they told Trump. They did tell him he lost, and they did tell him the plan was illegal. You just questioned that in your answer, but Eastman himself concedes that, and Giuliani, by the morning of the 6th, conceded that, then went out and publicly said the opposite to the people who risked themselves and their lives in some ways on the Capitol steps. I hear you, but I'm not quite sure it's that absolute. I mean, I listened to Eric Hirschman's testimony carefully. I don't think in his mind that he was certain that Eastman concluded that that advice was illegal.
I don't think he would have offered it if he thought it was decidedly illegal. I think he recognized that there were problems with it. I think he recognized that if they pushed it, they would lose in the Supreme Court 9-0 or 7-2, whatever you said.
By the way, briefly, because I'm running over on time, and I'll give you the last word as his courtesy. Quote, Mr. Eastman acknowledged it would violate several statutes, end quote.
Well, but I think Hirschman also said that it wasn't entirely clear to him that Eastman understood that the advice was illegal under the law. Now, I understand he thinks that it might have violated statutes. I think Eastman had some question about whether or not those statutes were constitutional.
All right.
So,
Mr.
look,
Ray,
and that's
over. I ran over,
Sure.
but I really appreciate you coming back because it's important to discuss and people can hear your views.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
sir.
having me.
Absolutely.